All right, welcome. Today, we're diving into something pretty fascinating and honestly, a little bit chilling. It's a cultural belief that all starts with one very strange question.
Can a day on the calendar actually be cursed? It sounds kind of wild in our modern world, doesn't it? But for centuries, in Javanese culture, the answer to that question has been a very cautious and sometimes fearful yes.
And that's the day we're talking about. It's called Kliwon Tuesday. And it's developed this incredibly eerie reputation for being linked to profound tragedy, specifically, and this is the really chilling part, incidents where entire families are lost at once.
So where does a belief like this even come from? How does it start? Well, to find out, you have to look at the stories. The stories passed down through generations, these really unnerving tales of loss that all seem to share one single detail.
This is exactly the kind of story you hear. It's personal, it's tragic, and it makes this direct, unshakable link between a terrible event and a specific day. It's things like this that really cement the warning in a community's memory. Okay, so to really get why this specific day is seen as so dangerous, we have to understand the calendar it comes from. And it's a really fascinating system, actually. It's built on the rhythm of two totally different cycles running at the same time.
See, while most of us are used to a 7-day week, traditional Javanese culture also uses this 5-day cycle. It's called the pasaran, and each of those 5 days has its own unique spiritual meaning, with Kliwon often seen as the most powerful and the most spiritually charged.
So how does this all fit together? Imagine two gears turning next to each other, but at different speeds. The 7-day week, we all know, that's the big gear. The 5-day pasaran cycle is the smaller gear. Every single 35 days, the teeth on those gears line up perfectly. The Tuesday from the big gear clicks right into place with the Kliwon from the small one. And that precise alignment, that's what's believed to create a day with this very unique and very potent spiritual energy.
And because of this perceived power, a whole collection of myths has grown up around Kliwon Tuesday. And more importantly, some very, very specific warnings about what you should and absolutely should not do on this day.
This is the big one. This is the taboo you hear about most often. The belief is that going on a long trip on Kliwon Tuesday is basically just asking for trouble. And this quote just perfectly captures the why behind it all. See, it's not just about simple bad luck. It's rooted in this deep spiritual idea that on this one night, the barrier between our world and the spirit world is weaker. It's a liminal space where things can get dangerous. And the day's influence doesn't just stop with travel. Nope. It extends to all kinds of major life events. Building a house, starting a business, even getting married. The thinking is that any new beginning is just too vulnerable to the day's negative energy. And again, it's these personal stories that give the belief so much power. An anecdote like this becomes a cautionary tale for the whole community, right? It reinforces that cultural taboo and passes it on to the next generation. So, okay, we've got the belief, we've got the stories, we've got the cultural context, but how do we actually interpret all this? Let's take a look at the different explanations, from the supernatural to the, purely rational. So here you have the two main ways of looking at it. On one side, you've got this deep-seated spiritual belief that the day itself is inherently dangerous. And on the other, you have principles from psychology and statistics that offer a completely different lens. Okay, so let's break these down, because they're really interesting. Confirmation bias is the real engine behind this. It's just our brain's tendency to notice and remember things that already fit what we believe. You know how this works, right? You decide you want a red car, and suddenly you see red cars everywhere. They were always there, but now your brain is primed to spot them. It's the same thing here. If you believe Kliwon Tuesday is dangerous, any tragedy on that day will feel like absolute proof. But a tragedy on a regular Wednesday, that's just an accident. Then you add in statistical clustering, which is just a fancy way of saying that coincidences are mathematically guaranteed to happen, and you have the perfect recipe for a myth that just keeps reinforcing itself. So, if we have all these rational explanations, why does a belief like this hang on so tightly? Well, the answer is a bit more complex than just writing it off as simple superstition. And this is the crucial point. When something awful and random happens, like an accident that takes a whole family, the human mind desperately searches for a reason. Any reason. The belief in Kliwon Tuesday, it provides one. Ultimately, what it does is transform a chaotic, meaningless event into something that fits. It has a place inside a cultural and spiritual order. It might not be a scientific answer, but it is a deeply, deeply human one that helps people and communities make sense of the senseless. And that really leaves us with a final thought, doesn't it? Whether it's a cursed day, a black cat crossing your path, or walking under a ladder, every culture has its own stories to try and explain the unexplainable. So what are the stories that shape yours?